Hey guys, Brittany here, and today I'm going to show you my top 5 hand sewing stitches that I use on garments all the time, mainly because I added a whole bunch of hand sewing and sewing notions to the shop, and I thought I would get you guys excited. The one I love most is the hand sewing kit, and it's got all the tools you need. I'm going to start off by making some sample squares here, and I'm going to cut them about 7 inches. And these are really good to keep on hand when you need to reference a stitch. I have a whole book of ones that I did from school time. So I'm just making some cotton, making several squares double-sided, so I have 2 of each so that we can, make some pretend hems and some pretend seams together. Our first stitch here is the basting stitch, which is a temporary stitch used for things like marking, basting hems, straight seams that don't need to be strong or they're going to be sewn later, like princess seams. You start by anchoring with a waist knot or a back stitch, and you use a long needle to make several stitches, making them about 1/4 inch apart. They don't need to be even, but it's just a temporary stitch that gets pulled out later on. The next stitch we're going to do is the back stitch. It's a really handy one to know if you do a lot of repairing of seams, like you open up one partially and you need to reclose it. It's a good strong stitch. It looks like a machine stitch, only by hand. And to do it, you just start with a very short needle, anchor the thread and work right to the left. You pick up about 1/8 of an inch of a stitch, pull the thread through and insert it another 1/8 inch behind the last thread. You complete it by passing the needle under again and out the fabric another 1/8 or so ahead of the last thread. So very handy and very strong. It's a really good one to have on your arsenal. In my example here, I'm going a little bit wider just so that you can see, but you can make them up to 1/16 even, really tiny and strong. For our next stitch, we're going to pretend that there's a lap zipper underneath this fold here, and we're going to hand pick a zipper. So this is when you want to not have a line of stitching showing on, say, your lace bodice, which I've done several times, and this has become one of my most favorite ways to finish a zipper when you're not doing an invisible zipper. This looks really nice on the outside. It's kind of like the previous back stitch where you take a small stitch, you go back behind the stitch and come out a ways. So you can do it in however length you want. Smaller, obviously, like a smaller distance, and shorter stitch is a stronger one. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, it's a very nice, clean looking zipper finish. The next stitch we're doing is a hem one. It's called the blind catch stitch, and it's a stronger, durable way to hem really any fabric, but particularly heavy fabric. It's done between 2 layers of fabric, so we pretend that raw finished hem there, unfinished hem is actually finished, and we fold it onto itself, anchoring our thread first in the hem allowance, and then we sort of just pick up a small amount going left to right, and then we pick one alternatively on the hem, the actual garment, and then go back to the hem allowance. So you kind of alternate between those two spots, and it kind of makes this weird V-type triangular shape going on, but yet it anchors it really nicely, and you don't see anything on the other side, and it's a really nice way to finish a hem. And there you have the blind catch stitch. Now, before we do my absolute favorite stitch, we're gonna look at a little neat trick of how to tie your knot. So you wrap it around your needle and then pull it through while holding the end of your thread, and it makes a knot. Pretty neat and fun to practice. I also have just taken to wearing a thimble to protect my fingers, and you wear that on the finger that you typically push your needle in. So my favorite stitch is the fell stitch, and I use this on, say, the folded under edge of a lining that's against the zipper in the inside of a dress. So you begin with a short needle, you anchor your thread down, and you push it in just slightly above the fold, and you bring out your needle into the opposite folded edge. And again, you would start above the fold and then push your needle through the folded edge to make your next stitch. It's a little bit like a slip stitch, only you're not putting your needle through the middle of the fold and drawing it through. You're just sort of making like a stab stitch. You're going right through both fabrics and bringing the needle out through the fold. So it's a really handy one to know. I find it a lot faster than a slip stitch. It's like got one less step in it, but it makes a huge difference. And it's when you use the same color thread, it's barely noticeable. And so using this on the inside of the garment, it makes a totally nice, clean finish. I also do it along necklines for lining, so rather than having a visible line of stitching on the inside of your neckline, this is a lot nicer looking. So yeah, very nice. And I'm going to trim my threads, and that's the last stitch. And like I said before, that I've added all the hand sewing notions that I used in this video today to the store, and you can purchase them for 10% off with the purchase of a course, including this new rotary cutter, which is really cool, and the prism shears that I absolutely love. They're really awesome and sharp and super satisfying to to snip like that. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Happy sewing.